Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Keys to the Kingdom. I'm Marissa. I hope you guys are having a nice Tuesday. Good to see you today. We're actually going to be continuing our study of the Book of Jubilees. We're going to be in chapters 7 through 10 today. And hopefully you are ready for this continuation of this study. It's pretty interesting. We're trying to compare it to a lot of the parts of Genesis, because a lot of it is very similar to Genesis. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who said a little prayer for me and a prayer for this page, because now somehow, some way, by some miracle, and I don't know how, and I don't even know why, because Facebook doesn't notify you of really anything. They don't really notify you sometimes when they deactivate your ability to do things on the page, and when they reactivate your ability to do things on the page. But somehow, some way, we are now able to do things on the page that we weren't able to do before, because Facebook had decided that the page was on their poo-poo list. But thank God, thank Yahuwah, thank you for your prayers, because now we are able to reach more people, whereas they had put limitations on the page for a while there. There was a few months where the Keys to the Kingdom was limited in our ability to reach anybody. And now it's been lifted. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but I don't care. All I care is that we're able to now, and I'm really thankful for that, because if you're not able to reach anybody, your page basically will become stagnant. And so if you spend a lot of money and time and energy building a page, and Facebook puts limitations on your page, and you're no longer able to reach anybody, it's very discouraging, because you can't really utilize the page, and any effort that you do put into the page at that point on is it's almost for naught, because they're blocking your ability to be seen by anyone. So I'm not going to question it. I just thank God that we're able to do that we're able to reach people now. So from now moving forward, I feel a lot better about things, because I was kind of depressed for a little while, because the page was flagged because of 2 posts from a year ago that were fact checked, I guess, and I deleted them, and eventually, I guess, somehow, some way, Facebook decided eventually that now we got the thumbs up again, so that's good. Hello, Gina. So glad you could make it, sweetie. Good to see you. So I'm really happy about that, and all is well and good when things are going well, I guess. So we're going to continue our study today in the Book of Jubilees. We've already gone through. We've already had 2 studies. So if you haven't seen those, I would go back and watch them, or just go back and read the first 6 chapters of the Book of Jubilees, so that you're kind of caught up as to where we're reading now. We're in chapters 7 through 10 today, and we're going to keep going. This is like I had mentioned before in past videos, these books were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. As you can see behind me, these are the caves of Qumran. This is where actually all of the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and there were 15 copies of the Book of Jubilees found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Book of Jubilees is also found in the Ethiopian Caanan, and there were canons more in the eastern part of the world that still had this as part of their canon, but it was removed from the European canon, or the Catholic canon. And so we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm gonna bring the scriptures up on the screen so you can follow along. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll address those as I see them come through. And let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so we're going to start here in chapter 7 in the Book of Jubilees, so just follow along with me here. All right, so verse 1 says, in the 7th week, in the 1st year of it, in this Jubilee, Noah planted vines in the mountain on which the ark had rested, named Lubar, one of the Ararat mountains, and they produced fruit in the 4th year, and he guarded their fruit and gathered it in the 7th month. He made wine of it, and I just want to point this out here. This was, you'll see in your you'll see in your Bibles in the Torah that there is a law for fruit trees. You'll see that you're supposed to gather them in the 4th year, and then you're really not supposed to consume or use these fruits from the fruit tree until the 5th year. So we also see that here in the Book of Jubilees. So he made wine from it and put it into a vessel and kept it until the 5th year, until the 1st day of the 1st new month. Okay, so Noah is harvesting in the 4th year and keeping the wine in a vessel until the 5th year. And he celebrated with joy the day of this feast, and he made a burnt sacrifice to Yah, one young ox and 1 ram and 7 sheep, each a year old, and the kid of the goats, that he might make atonement thereof for himself and his sons. Hi, Monteveros. Good to see you, sweetie. Glad you could make it. So we see here that Noah is making sacrifices, and it's just, it's interesting because, like I've said before, people say that none of the patriarchs, nobody from Adam until Sinai kept the Sabbath because it wasn't commanded to them to keep the Sabbath. But we also see that they are making sacrifices, but we don't necessarily see a command for them to make sacrifices. So it's just something to keep in mind. So maybe they were keeping the Shabbat, maybe they weren't. That's sort of a little bit of a point of debate among believers as to whether they kept the Shabbat or not. But they were also making sacrifices, but they were not commanded to make sacrifices. So I just find that interesting. He prepared the kid first and placed some of its blood on the flesh that was on the altar that he made. And all the fat he laid on the altar where he made the burnt sacrifice, and the ox and the ram and the sheep, and he laid all their flesh on the altar. He placed all their offerings mingled with oil on it, and afterwards he sprinkled wine on the fire which he had previously been made on the altar, and he placed incense on the altar and caused a sweet odor to rise up, which was acceptable before Yah, his Elohim. And he rejoiced, he and his children, and they drank the wine with joy. So they were celebrating a feast unto Yahuwah so this is 5 years after the ark rested on Mount Ararat, one of the mountains of Ararat. And they are celebrating a feast unto Yahuwah by offering drink and animal offerings on the altar, and they are drinking wine and being joyful and just, thankful to Yahuwah for saving them out of the deluge. Okay, so now we see here what we also see in Genesis. It was evening, and he went into his tent. This is Noah. And being drunken, he laid down and slept, and was uncovered in his tent as he slept. So this is just showing that he was drunk, and when he was laying down, because it's not like he was wearing pants, so it was probably very easy for him to be uncovered, or anyone to be uncovered, when you're wearing like some sort of a linen turban, or not turban, but like a linen just cloth over your body. So he's uncovered in his tent as he slept, and Ham saw Noah his father naked. So I just want to pause here, because remember that um, Adam and Eve, after they sinned, they were ashamed of their nakedness. And now their nakedness, which had been something that was not noticeable prior to them sinning, was now something to be ashamed of. Okay, it was now something that signified their shame of being in a sinful nature. And so for Noah's son to see his father naked and not turn away from that, and then not only did he not turn away from seeing his father naked, he went and told his brothers, as if to say, oh, I just saw our father naked. And now he's basically spreading this, basically spreading what he saw, seeing his father naked in his tent, to his brothers, and instead of covering his nakedness. Whereas Adam and Eve knew that they were naked, they covered their nakedness, and God made clothes from animals for them to cover their nakedness, as a form of concealment. Like he was helping them to conceal themselves, because this was now something that was considered almost like derogatory, to see someone other than your spouse without any clothes on. So here we have Ham seeing his father naked, and went and told his two brothers. Basically, so what I was trying to say, he ridiculed his father to his two brothers who were outside. And you see, there's a completely different action between Ham and Shem and Japheth. So Shem took his garment and arose, he and Japheth, and they placed the garment on their shoulders, and they went backwards and covered the shame of their father. So they went backwards as not to look upon their father, to look upon someone naked. And I've kind of said this in the past. It almost signified that there was something inside of you, some sort of sinful nature inside of you that would cause you to look upon someone naked and not turn away. There was something being shown about a person's character when they didn't turn away from seeing someone without any clothes on. Whereas Shem and Japheth knew instinctively that they should not look at their father, which is why they took the cover and they backed up to their father so that they could cover him without looking at him, because it would have been shameful for them to look at their father. So there's completely different characteristics in Shem and Japheth that are being portrayed here, as opposed to Ham, who there was something in him that, some sort of sinful nature that caused him to want to look upon his father. And you almost want to liken this to the Watchers, because the Watchers were the one that looked upon the women on the earth and lusted after them. And so there was something that wasn't right in his character, that was almost perverted, some sort of perversion in his character that caused him to not only look upon his father without turning away, but then to go and share it with his brothers, as if, again, I always liken it to the Watchers, where they lusted upon them, and he takes 2/3 of these heavenly beings, Lucifer, Satan, Azazel, whatever name you want to ascribe to the lead angel who was leading these fallen Watchers. I always see this as sort of a parallel to them, because it's like Ham had somehow gotten that nature in him. Okay, so we see that that Shem and Japheth cover their father, and their faces were backwards. Okay. Noah awoke from his sleep and knew all that his younger son had done to him, and he cursed his son and said, "Cursed be Canaan, an enslaved servant shall he be to his brothers." So there's a lot of debate as to why Noah cursed Canaan instead of Ham. I'm not going to get into all the different ideas and debates as to why he had cursed Canaan instead of Ham. I don't know if that's because there had already been a blessing upon Noah and his sons, so he had to curse the next generation. And by the way, when he says his son, back then they considered their grandchildren to be, they would have called them their sons. They wouldn't have said my grandson. They wouldn't have said my great-grandson. So he would have considered Canaan as his son, even though it was his grandson. So again, there's a lot of debate as to why it was Canaan, but maybe because that was his firstborn. I'm not sure, but maybe it had to go to the next generation. But he says, an enslaved servant he shall be to his brothers, and blessed be Ham, he said, and blessed be Yah Elohim of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and Elohim shall dwell in the dwelling of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. It's very possible that Yahuwah was very perceptive that it was Shem's idea to grab, because it was his garment that he grabbed, and he was also the older son. So it's very possible that he sees that Shem took it upon himself, and maybe Japheth just kind of followed in his lead. And Yahuwah was perceiving that Shem was the leader of this action of covering their father. Ham knew that his father had cursed his younger son, and he was displeased that he had cursed him, his son. And Ham parted from his father. So Ham is, and we're going to see this pattern throughout Scripture, but Ham is obviously not happy with his father for cursing his son, and he departs and leaves. And we see this also with Esau. We see this with Ishmael. We even see this with Judah. Judah, goes away because they feel ashamed of what they've done, that they split apart from the family. So he and his sons with him, Cush and Mitzrayim and Put and Canaan. And he built for himself a city and called his name after the name of his wife, Neela Tamauk. That's a mouthful right there. I'm not going to even attempt to say that name. You'll see in the Book of Jubilees that the names of the wives are given, and we never see that in the Book of Genesis. So it's interesting that we're getting the names of the wives here when we never see those in the Book of Genesis. Japheth saw it. So Japheth sees the city of Ham, and he becomes envious of his brother. So he's actually coveting the fact that his brother builds a city. So he too built for himself a city and called its name after the name of his wife, Adat-Tenesis. So not only is it interesting that they're showing the names of the wives here, but they're naming the cities after the names of their wives. I think that's interesting as well. Shem dwelt with his father Noah. So you see Shem here is dwelling in the tent of his father. And he built a city close to his father on the mountain, and he too called its name after the name of his wife, Sedekatelebab. I'm not even gonna attempt that again. But these three cities are near Mount Lubar, and Sedekatelebab in front of the mountain on its east, and this wife on the south, and this wife towards the east. So these cities were the cities of the three sons. So these are the sons of Shem, which are Elam and Asher, Arpachshed, who was born 2 years after the flood, and Lud and Aram. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tyrus, and these are the descendants of Noah. In the 28th Jubilee, Noah began to direct his sons in the ordinances and commandments, in all the judgments that he knew, and he exhorted his sons to observe. So I'm just going to pause here for a second. You're going to see in this chapter right here, so in this verse, chapter 7, verse 20, that Noah begins to direct his sons in the ordinances and commandments and the judgments that he knew. And it briefly lists here in 20 and 21 what Noah considers to be the ordinances, commandments, and judgments that he knew. And a lot of people teach that these are the Noahide laws and that these were the only laws in effect during the time of Noah. And they'll say that this is why we know that they were not keeping the Sabbath until Sinai, because you'll see here that it was not in these commandments here with Noah. So you'll see it taught, particularly in Judaism, they teach the 7 Noahide laws are only for non-Jews or non-Israelites, and that the Jews and Israelites were given all of the other laws to keep, and that non-Jews or Israelites are not to keep those. They're only supposed to keep the 7 Noahide laws. And there's even people outside of Judaism that are teaching this as well. And it's very possible that these were the only laws in place. However, you'll see here that in these laws, again, it's not mentioned that you're supposed to make sacrifices. However, somehow, some way, right out of the gate, we see Abel and Cain making sacrifices, but we don't see the commandment for them to do the sacrifices. And here, we don't see that reiterated for them to make sacrifices and how they're supposed to make those sacrifices. So, because of that, to me, it doesn't totally exclude the fact that they may have been keeping the Sabbath. Because it was given, it was created, and it was given at creation. So why would Yahuwah create the 7th day, but yet nobody was keeping it? So, Adam and Eve, you're saying that Adam and Eve and none of their descendants were keeping it, even though that they knew and they were close to Yahuwah at that point because they had just come out of the garden. Surely they would have known that he created this Shabbat and they were supposed to keep it. But that's another thing that is debated. But let's go ahead and continue and see what Noah was commanding his descendants here. So it says, Noah began to direct his sons in the ordinances and commandments and all the judgments that he knew, and he exhorted his sons to observe righteousness and to cover the shame of their flesh, so you were not supposed to walk around naked, and to bless their Creator, okay, to honor father and mother. So to bless their Creator, one of the ways they could have been blessing the Creator is the sacrifices. Another way they could have been blessing their Creator was the Shabbat. So again, you almost wonder what that entails, blessing their Creator, because the Sabbath was a way for us to one of the ways that we could be loving our Elohim, our God, Yahuwah, and so were the sacrifices. And honor your father and mother, and love their neighbor. Guard their souls from fornication and uncleanliness in all iniquity. Because of these 3 things came the flood on earth, namely the fornication that the watchers had committed against the law of their ordinances, when they went whoring after the daughters of men. So again, we see the parallel here of the watchers coming into the daughters of men and committing against the law of their ordinances, so leaving their realm and whoring with the daughters of men. and took themselves wives of all they chose, and they made the beginning of uncleanliness. So this confirms what we see in Genesis 6 and in the book of Enoch. And they begat sons, the Nephilim, and they were all dissimilar, and they devoured one another. And the giants killed the Nephil, and the Nephil killed the Elho, and the Elho killed mankind, and mankind killed one another. Okay, so this is having to do with the giants and the Nephilim. They were devouring the land. They became cannibals. They were actually eating other human beings. And then eventually all humankind was killing one another. Everyone committed himself to crime and injustice and to shed much blood, and the earth was filled with sin. Okay, this was prior to the flood. After this, they sinned against the beast and the birds. They sinned against them. So, they weren't just eating these beasts and birds. It's very much believed that they were mating with these beings. Okay, so having sex with animals, and some form of genetic manipulation was going on with the animals. And all that moved and walked on the earth, and much blood was shed on the earth, and men continually desired only what was useless and evil. And that's when Yah destroyed everything from the face of the earth because of the wickedness of their deeds and because of the blood that they had shed over the earth. And he destroyed everything. Okay, so it's clearly saying here that because of what the Watchers did and all of the sin that they had perpetuated on the earth is why Yahuwah had to destroy the earth the way that he did, because they had completely permeated through mankind and all of the animal kingdom as well. Okay, so we were left, I and you, my sons, and everything that entered with us into the ark. And behold, I see your works before me, and that you do not walk in righteousness. For in the path of destruction you have begun to walk. Noah is saying this to his sons, to his descendants. And you are turning one against another, and are envious one of another. So now the brothers are starting to become jealous of each other. And so it comes that you are not in harmony, my sons, each with his brother. So the brothers are starting to have sibling rivalry amongst themselves and their descendants. For I see the demons have begun their seductions against you and your children. So Noah is actually insinuating that the demons are beginning to influence his descendants, his sons. And now I fear on your behalf that after my death you will shed the blood of men on earth, and that you too will be destroyed from the face of the earth. So Noah is afraid that the pattern is going to repeat again. Okay, so that what happened before the flood is going to happen again. For whoever sheds man's blood, and whoever eats the blood of any flesh, shall all be destroyed from the earth. So this is something that was happening prior to the flood. They were eating the blood of flesh. Okay? And so it was eating the blood of animals. They were eating animals while they were still alive. And of humans. And this is why you see this commandment all the way to the very, even the end of the Bible, where you do not eat anything with the blood inside of it. And I'll just throw a little caveat in there that like when people start reading about like the elite of the world today and how they meet in secret and how they, basically continue all of these diabolical rituals and practices that they were doing during the time of the Canaanites and the Nephilim, and basically they've kept this ritual, and it's even said that they still drink the blood of humans. And somehow they believe that it gives them some sort of power. Why that is, I don't know, and I don't care to know, but it is believed that people today, certain groups today, are still continuing to do this very thing that Yahuwah said not to do. Okay, let's continue here. There shall be no man left that eats blood, or that sheds the blood of man on the earth, nor shall there be left to him any offspring or descendants living under heaven. Into the abode of the dead shall they go, and into the place of condemnation shall they descend, and into the darkness of the deep shall they all be removed by violent death. Do not smear blood on yourself, or let it remain on you. Out of all the blood there shall be shed, and out of all the days in which you have killed any beasts or cattle or whatever flies on the earth, you must do a good work to your souls by covering that which has been shed on the face of the earth. In other words, you're not to make yourself unclean by allowing blood to remain on you when you kill an animal. Basically, this is how you can become unclean, having the blood of animals on you. You shall not be like him who eats blood, but guard yourselves that none may eat blood before you. Cover the blood. For thus have I been commanded to testify to you and to your children together with all flesh. Do not permit the soul or life to be eaten with the flesh, that your blood, which is your life, may be required at the hand of any flesh that sheds it on the earth. So again, the life is in the blood. We know that. For the earth will not be clean from the blood that has been shed on it, for only through the blood of him that is shed will the earth be purified throughout all its generations. Now, my children, listen, have judgment and righteousness, that you may be planted in the righteousness over the face of the whole earth, and your glory lifted up in the presence of my Elohim, who spared me from the waters of the flood. Look, you will go and build for yourselves cities, and plant in them all the plants that are on the earth, moreover, all fruit-bearing trees. For 3 years the fruit of everything that is eaten will not be gathered. And in the 4th year, so this is the law of the fruit trees. And in the 4th year its fruit is to be counted as pure and offered as a first fruit, acceptable before the Most High Elohim, who created heaven and earth and all things. Let them offer in abundance the first of the wine and oil as first fruits on the altar of Yah, who receives it. And what is left, let the servants of the house of Yah eat before the altar which receives it. Okay, and then in the 5th year, make the release, so you can release in righteousness and uprightness, and you shall be righteous, and all that you plant shall prosper. For this is how Enoch did it. So it's mentioning Enoch here. The father of your father commanded Methuselah his son, and Methuselah commanded his son Lamech, and Lamech commanded me all the things that his father commanded him. So this is the law of the fruit tree. I also will give you commandment, my sons, as Enoch commanded his son in the first Jubilees, while still living, the 7th in his generation, he commanded and testified to his son and to his son's sons until the day of his death. So Enoch is saying that Noah is saying that he is giving the commandment to his sons just as Enoch had given his sons. Okay, so now on to chapter 8. In the 29th Jubilee, in the beginning of the first week, Arpachshad took to himself a wife, and her name was Rasueha, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam. These are the descendants of Shem, by the way. And she gave birth to a son in the 3rd year in this week and called his name Caanan. The son grew, and his father taught him writing, and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city. So he taught him writing, which means this is supposed to mean that he taught him the ways of Yahuwah. Okay? Taught him all of the ways of Yahuwah. And he found writing, so this is going to be interesting. Check this out. His father taught him writing, okay, so which was their scriptures, but he found writing which former generations had carved on a rock, and he read what was on it, and he transcribed it and sinned because of it, for it contained the teachings of the watchers, which they had used to observe the omens of the sun and moon and stars in all the signs of heaven. So this son here, Caanan, this is not Kanan, the descendant of Ham. This is the descendant of Shem. Okay, so he was taught in his father's house the ways of Yahuwah. But he finds these writings that former generations had carved on a rock prior to the flood. And he read what was on it, and he transcribed it. And this was considered a sin because it contained the teachings of the watchers. And he obviously knew it was a teaching of the watcher because he was versed in the teachings of Yahuwah. What they had used to observe the omens of the sun and moon and stars and all the signs of heaven. So this could have been a perverted way to look at the sun, the moon, and the stars. Probably something similar to not horoscopes, but astrology. This was probably something very similar to astrology, and not the way that Yahuwah told us to observe the sun, moon, and stars. That's my guess. So he wrote it down and said nothing of it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, or he would be angry with him because of it. So this is actually a descendant of Shem keeping and writing down the teachings of the watchers. Okay? In the 30th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year of it, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Milcah, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. So we see the son of Shem, which is Caanan, taking a wife, Milcah, which was the daughter of Madai, which was a son of Japheth. So now we see the first mingling of the son of Shem with the daughter of Japheth. And in the 4th year he begot a son and called his name Shelah, for he said, "Truly I have been sent." And Shelah grew up and took himself a wife, and her name was Muach, the daughter of Kesed, his father's brother. So this was Canaan's brother's daughter that Shelah took as a wife. And in the 30th Jubilee, in the 5th week, and in the 1st year of it, she gave birth to a son in the 5th year and called his name Eber. Eber is called the father of the Hebrews. So the father of the Hebrews, who is considered Eber is actually the word that supposedly is where the name Hebrews comes from. And Eber is actually a mixture of Shem and Japheth. And he took himself a wife, and her name was Azurad, the daughter of Nebrod. So this is interesting here because it's thought that it's the daughter of Nimrod that Eber takes as a wife. So now, if this is Nimrod, if this is Nimrod's daughter, then now Eber is mixing with the daughters of Ham. Because Nimrod was a descendant of Ham. In the 32nd Jubilee, in the 7th week, in the year of it. So first we see the son of Shem taking a daughter of Japheth, and now we see this mixture of Japheth and Shem, this son, taking a daughter of Nimrod, which was a descendant of Ham. In the 6th year of it, she gave birth to a son and called his name Peleg. For in the days when he was born, the children of Noah began to divide the earth among themselves. For this reason he called his name Peleg. They divided it secretly among themselves and told it to Noah. So now they're splitting up the lands on the earth, each between the different sons. In the beginning of the 33rd Jubilee, they divided the earth into 3 parts, for Shem and Ham and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each. So it's going to be divided into 3 parts between Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their descendants. In the 1st year, in the 1st week, when one of us messengers who had been sent was with them. So it's saying here that one of the angels was sent to them. He called his sons, and they drew close to him, they and their children, and they divided the earth into lots, which his 3 sons were to take in possession. And they reached out their hand and took the writings. So check this out. They reached out their hands and took the writings out of the arms of Noah, their father. So these are the writings. Remember, they were teaching their sons the writings. So these were all of the commandments and judgments, everything passed down probably from Adam all the way to Noah. They took out of the arms of Noah their father. And there came out on the writings as Shem's lot, the middle of the earth, that he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons and the generation for eternity. And from the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina, and his portion goes towards the west, through the middle of this river, and it extends until it reaches the waters of the abysses, and out of which this river goes out and pours out into the sea Maat, and this river flows into the great sea. So I'm going to show you a map that shows the portion that was given to Shem, the portion that was given to Japheth, and the portion that was given to Ham. So just so you can visualize the areas of the earth that were given to these 3 sons, let me pull this up. I want to pull up this map so you can visualize the areas of the earth that were given to these 3 sons. Excuse me. Okay, let's see here. So this is probably let me see here. Yeah, so this is a good map here. Let me just bring this up for you. right, let me bring this picture up for you because I want you to visualize the areas of the earth that were given to Shem, Ham, and Japheth, which I'm pretty sure you probably have a good idea, since to this day it's still pretty much the same. Bear with me 1 second as I pull this up. Okay, so let me just enlarge this so that you can see here. But, okay, so you see that Shem was given the middle of the earth. So this is like, so the area of the, it's probably why it's still called the Middle East, because Shem was given the middle of the earth. This was, at that time, this was considered the middle of the earth. So all of the Middle East here was given to Shem. Ham was given this corner of Africa. Okay, so you have the Egypt and Ethiopia. This is where you have Cush and Put and Mitzrayim. And then Japheth was given this area here. So he was given this area to the north. So this is like Europe and, Turkey. And then, this area here that goes up into Russia and, Italy and Greece, all of these islands here. This part was given to Japheth. So Shem is getting the eastern part, this middle part. Ham is given this area here. And then Japheth was given more towards the north. So if you had any sons that were close to this area, you'll see that, and from this point all the way up till today, this is still an area of contention, and they're still fighting over this area because you have land that is very close to 3 different sets of brothers, and as all siblings do, they have rivalries, and these brothers you're going to see them start to fight over this area, and it's going to happen immediately, and it's still happening to this day. So this just gives you an idea of why to this day there is still fighting going on in that area of the world, and people trying to take land. It's amazing how stuff happens in the beginning and it just continues on. Nothing new under the sun throughout history. So let's keep reading, because we're going to see that immediately there's going to be jealousy amongst who got what. Okay. So let's see here. So we saw Shem's part, and now all that is towards the north is Japheth's, and we saw that. And all that is towards the south belongs to Shem, and it extends until it reaches Carasso, and it is in the center of the tongue of land that it looks towards the south. His portion extends along the great sea, and it extends in a straight line until it reaches the west of the tongue that looks towards the south. For this sea is named the tongue of the Egyptian sea. And it turns from here towards the south, towards the mouth of the great sea and on the shore of its waters, and it extends to the west of Africa. And it extends until it reaches the waters of the great Gihon, and to the south of the waters of Gihon to the banks of its river. It extends towards the east until it reaches the Garden of Eden, to the south of it, and from the east of the whole land of Eden, and of the whole east it turns to the east and proceeds until it reaches the east of the mountain named Rapha, and it descends to the bank of the mouth of the river Tina. This portion came out by lot for Shem and his sons, that they should possess it forever, to his generations forever. Noah rejoiced that this portion came out for Shem and for his sons, and he remembered that all he had spoken with his mouth in prophecy, for he had said, "Blessed be Yah Elohim of Shem, and may Yah dwell in the dwelling of Shem." He knew that the Garden of Eden is the purest place, and the dwelling of Yah and Mount Sinai, and the center of the desert and Mount Zion, which is the center of the navel of the earth, these 3 were created as pure places facing each other. So Noah knew this. And he blessed the Elohim of Elohims, who had put the word of Yah in his mouth. Hey, Christine, late but here. Thank God for replay to get what I missed. Oh, so glad you could make it, sweetie. So glad you're here. Yes, better late than never, I guess. So Noah is blessing God for the way that he divvied up the portions to his sons, and he knew that a blessed portion and blessing had come to Shem and his sons and their generation forever, which was the whole land of Eden. So Eden was in this middle portion that was given to Shem and his descendants. In the whole land of the Red Sea, and the whole land of the east of India, and in the Red Sea and the mountains of it, and all the land of Bashan, and all the land of Lebanon, and the islands of Caphtor, and all the mountains of Sinir and Amanah, and the mountains of Asher in the north, and all the land of Elam, Asher, Bavel, Susan, and Medai, and all the mountains of Ararat, and all the region beyond the sea, which is beyond the mountains of Asher, towards the north, a blessed and spacious land, and all that is in it is very good. Now this is Ham's part. Ham received the second portion beyond the Gihon, towards the south to the right of the garden, and it extends towards the south, and it extends to all the mountains of fire, and it extends towards the west to the sea of Atal, and it extends towards the west until it reaches the sea of Mauk, which was the sea into which everything that is not destroyed descends. And it goes out towards the north to the limits of Gadir, and goes out to the coasts waters of the sea, to the waters of the great sea, until it draws near the river Gihon, and goes along the river of Gihon until it reaches to the right of the Garden of Eden. This is the land that came out for Ham as its portion, which he was to occupy forever for himself, and his sons to their generations forever. Japheth received the third portion beyond the river Tina to the north, out of the outflowing of its waters, and it extends northeasterly to the whole region of Gog, and to all the country east of it. It extends northerly, and it extends to the mountains of Kelt, towards the north, and towards the sea of Mauk, and it goes out to the east of Gadir, as far as the region of the waters of the sea, and it extends until it approaches the west of Farah, and it returns towards Apharag, and it extends easterly to the waters of the sea of Maat. It extends to the region of the river Tina in a northeasterly direction until it approaches the boundary of its waters towards the mountain of Rapha, and it turns towards the north. This is the land that came out for Japheth and his sons as a portion of his inheritance, that he should possess 5 great islands and a great land in the north for himself and his sons for their generation forever. But it is cold, and the land of Ham is hot, and the land of Shem is neither cold nor hot, because it is of blended cold and heat. So basically, Ham was given the portion of Africa that is considered a hot climate. Japheth was given portion towards the north in Europe that was considered a colder climate, and it was able to snow there. And Shem was given the middle portion of the earth, which was considered to have a milder climate, so neither cold nor hot. So we see here that these were the parts of the earth that were given to the sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And we're going to see here in chapter 9 that they start to sort of covet certain parts of their brother's land, as it is to this very day. So chapter 9 says, Ham divided among his sons. The first portion came out for Cush towards the east, and the west of him Mitzrayim, and to the west of him for Put, and to the west of him the sea for Canaan. So it was supposed to be to the west of Put, on the sea for Canaan. But this is not what actually ends up happening for Canaan. Shem also divided among his sons. The first portion came out for Elam and his sons, to the east of the river Tigris until it approaches the east, and the whole land of India. So we see that Shem's descendants go into India, and on the Red Sea on its coast, and on the waters of Dedan, and all the mountains of Mebri and Elah, and all the land of Susan, and all that is in the side of Pharnak to the Red Sea and the river Tina. Asher received the second portion, all the lands of Asher and Nineveh and Shinar, and to the border of India, and it descends to the skirts the river. Arphaxad received the third portion, all the land region of the Chaldees, and to the east of the Euphrates, bordering the Red Sea, and all the waters of the desert close to the tongue of the sea, which looks towards Egypt, and all the land of Lebanon, and Sinir, and Amanah to the borders of the Euphrates. Aram received a fourth portion, all the land of Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates, and to the north of Chaldees, to the border of the mountains of Asher and the land of Ara. Lud got the fifth portion, the mountains of Asher and all surrounding them, until it reaches the great sea, until it reaches the east of Asher, his brother. Japheth also divided the land of his inheritance among his sons. The first portion came out for Gomer to the east, from the north side to the river Tina, and the north came out for Magog, all the inner portions of the north until it reaches the Sea of Maat. Madai received his portion, and that he should possess from the west of his two brothers to the islands, and the coasts of the islands. Javan got the fourth portion, every island and its islands that are towards the brother of Lud. For Tubal there came out the fifth portion in the middle of the tongue that approaches towards the border of the portion of Lud to the second tongue, and the region beyond the second tongue to the third tongue. Meshach received the sixth portion, and that entire region beyond the third tongue until it approaches east of Gadir. Tyrus got the seventh portion, 4 great islands in the middle of the sea, which reached the portion of Ham. So this is probably the islands right above Africa. And the island of Kamaturi came out by lot for the sons of Arphaxad and his inheritance. Thus the sons of Noah divided their sons in the presence of Noah their father, and he bound them all. So watch this. He bound them all by an oath, and invoked a curse on every one that sought to seize any portion which had not fallen to him by his lot. So they were bound by an oath, and a curse was going to be upon any of them that seized any portion that was not theirs. And they all said, so be it for themselves and their father forever throughout their generations, until the day of judgment, on which Yah Elohim shall judge them with a sword and with fire for all the unclean wickedness of their errors that they had filled the earth with, which are transgression, uncleanliness, and fornication and sin. So they were bound to this oath forever until the day of judgment. All right, so here in chapter 10, it says, in the third week of this Jubilee, so this is interesting, the unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, to make them sin and to destroy them. So these were the demons that were left over because of the Nephilim. Okay? So these unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah and make them sin to destroy them. The sons of Noah came to Noah their father and told them about the demons that were leading them astray and blinding and slaying his sons' sons. So they were leading them astray and blinding them. So they come to Noah and tell him. And he prayed before Yah his Elohim and said, Elohim of the spirits of all flesh, who have shown me mercy to me and have spared me and my sons from the waters of the flood, and have not caused me to die as you did the sons of perdition. For your grace has been great towards me, and great has been your mercy to my soul. Let your grace be filled up on my sons, and do not let the wicked spirits rule over them, or they will destroy them from the face of the earth. But bless me and my sons, so that we may increase and multiply and replenish the earth. You know how your watchers, the father of these spirits, acted in my day. And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them and hold them fast in the place of condemnation, and let them not bring destruction to the sons of your servant, my Elohim, for these are like cancer and are created in order to destroy. He's calling these devil spirits a cancer that were created in order to destroy. Let them not rule over the spirits of the living, for you alone can exercise dominion over them. And let them not have power over the sons of the righteous from now and forever. And Yah, our Elohim, commanded us to bind all of them. So remember that this is the angel that is speaking to Moses, giving him basically all of these chapters that we're reading, in fact, the entire book of Jubilees, is an angel that is speaking to Moses. And he said, Yah, our Elohim, commanded us messengers, the angels, to bind all of them. Okay? The chief of spirits, Mastema, came and said, Yah, Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them listen to my voice and do all that I shall say to them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For great is the wickedness of the sons of men. So here we have an angel in this group of watchers coming to Yah and saying to him, you have to let some of these evil demon spirits remain and let them listen to my voice, because otherwise I won't be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. So he's coming to him saying that I still have to be able to have some ability to exercise my will on the sons of men, to lead them astray, because they are wicked. So because they are wicked, I have to be able to have the ability to lead them astray. Because otherwise there would be no choice, I guess, between the righteous, following righteousness and following unrighteousness. So he's pleading before Yah to let some of them remain. He said, let 1/10 of them remain before him, and let 9/10 of them descend into the place of condemnation. He commanded one of us angels, to teach Noah all their medicines, for he knew that they would not walk in uprightness, nor strive in righteousness. So check this out, guys. He commanded one of the angels to teach Noah all of their medicines, because he knew that they would not walk in uprightness and that they would need medicine. We did according to all his words. All the malignant evil ones we bound in the place of condemnation, and 1/10 part of them we left, that they might be subject in the presence of Satan on the earth. So basically a 10th portion of these demonic spirits were subject to the presence of Satan on the earth. We explained to Noah, so check this out. We explained to Noah, the angels, okay? The angels explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, and how they might heal them with herbs of the earth. And you're going to see this when we do our Tending to Our Temple series. I'm going to explain to you the importance of herbs and essential oils and these natural remedies that God has given us, Yahuwah has given us, and actually that the angels had explained to Noah, because he knew that we would need herbs of the earth to heal ourselves, because we're in a fallen state, okay? And we're going to need the herbs of the earth as a form of healing. Noah wrote down all things in a book as we instructed him, as the angels instructed him, concerning every kind of medicine. Okay, so what was considered every kind of medicine? The herbs of the earth were considered every kind of medicine. And so they were teaching him how each one of them was to heal certain ailments. Okay, so he's writing all of this down in a book. So it was actually given to us, the knowledge and the wisdom of how to use the herbs of the earth for healing. So he wrote these down in the book, and we instructed him concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah. So what is this saying? Noah wrote down all the things in a book, as we instructed him, concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah. So I'm curious if this is insinuating that through these herbal medicines, so, oh my gosh, guys, like, don't you remember hearing like certain people would wear certain herbs, or how like garlic would ward off evil spirits, how they would keep evil spirits away by keeping these herbs around, by using different, herbs and stuff of the earth to keep evil spirits away? That's basically exactly what this is saying. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah. And we see all throughout history that these herbs and different tinctures were used to ward off evil spirits, to keep them away from people. And how far have we come through history, and now we're in a part of history where that's like not even considered a part of wisdom. That's not even considered a part of medicine. Keeping these herbals and these things around, these things of the earth to ward off evil spirits. Like, that's not even a thing. It's a completely lost, probably within just the last 100 years, a completely lost habit of households. So this is how they were able to keep evil spirits from hurting the sons of Noah. He gave all that he had written to Shem, his eldest son, for he loved him greatly above all his sons. So he gave all of these things that the angels had told him about medicines and using the herbs of the earth to keep these evil spirits away to Shem. And Noah slept with his fathers and was buried on Mount Lubar in the land of Ararat. 950 years he had completed his life, 19 jubilees, and 2 weeks and 5 years. In his life on earth he was greater than all the children of men, except Enoch. Because of his righteousness he was perfect. For Enoch's office was ordained for a testimony to the generations of the world, so that he should recount all the deeds of generation to generation until the day of judgment. So again, this is sort of giving testament to the book of Enoch, because it was given for a testimony to the generations of the world. In the 33rd Jubilee, in the first year in the second week, Peleg took for himself a wife whose name was Lomna, the daughter of Sinar, and she gave birth to a son for him in the 4th year of this week, and called his name Reu. For he said, "Look, the children of men have become evil because of the building of a city, and a tower in the land of Shinar was for an evil purpose." So now we see the Tower of Babel, which was built in the land of Shinar, being built during this time. So actually, it's interesting. It's after Noah dies that they start building the Tower of Babel. For they departed from the land of Ararat eastward to Shinar. For in his days they built the city and the tower, saying, Go to, let us rise up thereby unto heaven. They wanted to get into heaven. This was the purpose of the tower, to get into heaven. They began to build, and in the 4th week they made brick with fire, and the brick served for them stone, and the clay with which they cemented together was asphalt, which comes out of the sea and out of the fountains of water in the land of Shinar. They built it 43 years, so they spent 43 years building the Tower of Babel. 43 years. I think I might have a picture for you. I had a picture that showed basically the difference between the Tower of Babel and all the largest buildings that have been erected today. And it absolutely just dwarfs every building that we have on the earth today. It just completely dwarfs it. I wish I could pull it up for you, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I have it located. But it took 43 years to build, and its breadth was 23 bricks, and the height of a brick was the third of one, and its height amounted 5,433 cubits and 2 palms. And the extent of one wall was 13 times 600 feet, and of the other 30 times 600 feet. And Yah, our Elohim, said to us, Look, they are one people. And they began to do this, and nothing will be withheld from them. Let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. You'll see throughout Scripture, and even throughout history, and even till today, that when the people become one, when you see them uniting like this, it's always for satanic purposes. It's not for good reason. So, when the United Nations comes out and they're trying to get everybody to unite and they keep saying unity, 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 it's usually in rebellion against God. Regardless of how good they try to make it sound, it's always rebellion. That they may be dispersed into cities and nations, and they will be in agreement. They will not be in agreement together with one purpose until the day of judgment. And Yah descended, and we descended with him, so the angels descended with him, to see the city and the tower that the children of men had built. He confounded their language, and they no longer understood one another's speech. And they then ceased to build the city and the tower. For this reason, the whole land of Shinar is called Babel, because Yah confounded all the language of the children of men there, and from that place they were dispersed into their cities, each according to his language and nation. Then Yah sent a mighty wind against the tower, and it fell to the earth. And behold, it was between Asher and Babylon, in the land of Shinar, and they called its name Overthrow. So this is interesting. He caused a mighty wind to come against the tower, and it falls down to the earth. In the 4th week, in the 1st year, in the beginning of it, in the 34th Jubilee, we were dispersed from the land of Shinar. Ham and his sons went into the land that he was to occupy, which he acquired in the portion in the land of the south. But, and here's what happens. Caanan saw the land of Lebanon. So this is the land of Shem that Caanan is looking at. To the river of Egypt was very good. And he did not go to the land of his inheritance, to the west. That is to the sea. And he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, eastward and westward, from the border of Jordan and from the border of the sea. So I'm going to stop here for a second. So this is where we see, okay, Canaan was given a certain portion of land, but now he is coveting this land right there where we know today to be the land of Canaan, to be, where Israel is. He's coveting this portion of land that belonged to Shem's descendants. And he actually goes to this part of the Lebanon and the Jordan and all of its borders and takes this land. Just a whole other reason for why Yahuwah would have wanted Israel to go into the land of Canaan and completely drive them out. Remember, they were bound by an oath to stay in their portions of land and not to take land that was not theirs. Okay, so we see this is another reason for why Yahuwah why Abraham and his descendants were allowed to take this land. Why? Because I guarantee you that Abraham and his descendants were actually already supposed to be in that land that had been taken from Canaan. It was actually their land to begin with, because it was given to the descendants of Shem. You see? So Ham, his father, and Cush and Mitzrayim, his brothers, actually say to him, "You have settled in a land which is not yours, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do this." They're telling him, don't do this. If you do, you and your sons will be conquered in the land and be accursed through war. By war you have settled, and by war will your children fall, and you will be rooted out forever. So they're already prophesying to him what is going to happen because they decide to take the land. Do not live in the land of Shem, for to Shem and to his sons did it come by their lot. Cursed are you, and cursed will you be beyond all the sons of Noah, by the curse by which we bound ourselves by an oath in the presence of the pure judge and in the presence of Noah our father. But he did not listen to them, and settled in the land of Lebanon from Hamath to the border of Egypt, he and his sons until this day. For this reason is the land named Canaan. And Japheth and his sons went towards the sea, and settled in the land of their portion. And Madai saw the land of the sea, and it did not please him. So we have the son of Japheth, Madai, not pleased with his lot, and he begged Ham and Asher and Arpachsad, his wife's brother, for a portion. And he dwelt in the land of Media near his wife's brother until this day. So we see here that he didn't steal this land, but he begged them, okay, his wife's brother, for a portion, and dwells in the land of Media. Okay, so later on in scriptures we see the land of Persia and Midian. So this is where Madai settles. And he called his and his son's dwelling place Media after the name of their father, Madai. Okay, so we see two instances here. We see Canaan stealing the land of Shem. And then we see a descendant of Japheth, Madai, just basically begging his father-in-law to give him a portion in the land of Media, so that he could dwell there, because he did not like the land that he was given. And this is interesting because we don't see in the book of Genesis this dividing of the land, of where the sons were supposed to be, and that they were bound by an oath. But we see here in the Book of Jubilees another reason for why Yahuwah allowed Abraham and his descendants to completely annihilate and remove the Canaanites from that land. It never belonged to them. It had always belonged to the descendants of Shem. And this is actually an oath that they were supposed to keep forever. So if there's anyone in those lands today that is not supposed to be there, they're under a curse. Okay? So this is interesting because we get a little bit more than we have in the book of Genesis as to what was going on, how Canaan ended up in Canaan, in that region, and why Yahuwah would have given the land over to the descendants of Shem. Makes perfect sense, right? So I think that's interesting. We're going to continue next Tuesday with chapter 11, and we're going to read a few more chapters. And this Shabbat, we will continue with our Exodus reading. We're almost done with the book of Exodus, and we're going to finish reading some of the book of Exodus this Shabbat. So I hope to see you then, and I hope to see you next Tuesday. We'll continue our Book of Jubilees reading, but it's interesting. We're getting a little bit more information, and we will continue to get a lot more information. This is a pretty large book, so it's going to take us a while. We're going to read probably four or five chapters every Tuesday, but we'll get through it, and we'll continue with our Bible readings. So something to keep in mind. And again, I just find it very fascinating that there were 15 copies of the Book of Jubilees found in the Qumran caves, which is behind me, amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. 15 copies. And apparently that was more copies than almost any of the other books of the Bible, with the exception of a few, with the exception about 5 or 6 or 7 books. There was more copies of the Book of Jubilees than almost any other book in the Bible. So I think that's interesting as well. All right, guys, that will conclude our study today, our reading of the Book of Jubilees. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of detail in the mapping out, but I hope that picture gave you a good idea of where the sons of Ham were supposed to be, where the sons of Japheth were supposed to be, and the sons of Shem. And we see to this day that that's still pretty much it. You know, the Europeans are mostly the descendants of Japheth. The Middle East is, and towards the east is predominantly the descendants of Shem, and then you have Africa as the descendants of Ham. And there's been so much mixture over the centuries that I'm sure there's a very good blending that's been going on. But I think it's interesting because they were assigned those areas. We don't see the Americas given to anyone. So you have North and South America that weren't necessarily given to anyone. So I'm kind of wondering if these lands, the Americas, were sort of up for grabs, because we don't see any covenant being made with those lands given to anyone. So I'm wondering if those who had found these lands just felt like it was completely up for grabs because there was no promise. In other words, those lands weren't designated to anyone. So I wonder if, to this day, if America and South America, if all that side is just sort of up in the air, or is it finders keepers, or I don't know. It's I don't know how Yahuwah would view these lands over here, since they weren't assigned to anybody. So it's kind of a head scratcher for me. I've always wondered what his feelings were regarding the lands over here in the West, since they weren't given to anybody. They weren't given by Yahuwah. We don't see them given to anyone. So who knows? Who knows? God bless you guys. Have a great rest of the week. And I hope to see you this Shabbat for the rest of our Exodus study. And thank you to everyone who prayed for the page, as we are now up and running in the fullness, in our full capacity. So hopefully we'll continue to grow. God bless you. Hope to see you this Shabbat. Have a wonderful day.